This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Shalom Aleichem. Good morning. Welcome to our guest. We have a guest all the way from LA. Rabbi Bach, Mitzvah Hashem, soon to be our neighbor. Should all wish him, Mitzvah Hashem, should be successful in the Aliyah process, Mitzvah Hashem. I want to dedicate the shir for Hatzlacha of Ben Zion Ben Dosa, him and his family. Should have siyata dishmaya in everything they do. Parshas Pinchas and the 3 weeks in Yana de Yoyme, Tisha B'Av, Mitzvah Hashem, not going to be relevant by the time we finish the shir. It's going to be a yontif. But we still have to speak about it, just lahalacha, not lemaise. But if chas v'sholom, Mashiach doesn't come in the next few days, so maybe it will be relevant. But we're starting with Parshat Pinchas, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe, Leimo, Pinchas ben Elazar HaKoyen, Eshiv Chamasim me'al bnei Yisrael. He was able to come down my wrath, V'lo chilisi es bnei Yisrael. I didn't eradicate Klal Yisrael, and therefore I will give him his reward. Says the Medrash Rabbah, Bamidbar, Rabbah, Parsha Chaf Aleph, Ois Aleph, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bedinhu sheyitol schoroi. It's only right that he should be rewarded. What a strange language. Bedinu sheyitol schoroi. And normally it's not Bedin HaKadosh that a person should be rewarded. What does it mean? Bedinu. It's a unique language we don't find in different places. Bedinu. Here he should be rewarded. In other words, normal people should not be rewarded, or should be rewarded, but bechesed, b'schus, not bedin. How does it work? Not one, not two, not three, 6 answers. From Gedol Yolim, you see it bothered Gedol Yolim, so many of them, so they all come up, there's more answers. More only shares 6. Epsim Rabonim, Pshisra, he says like this, he adds another question. Kiddushin Daf Lamed Tes Amud Beis, we learn, Schar mitzvah behai alma, leika. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't pay you the reward for the mitzvahs that you do in this world. Wait. You go to the next one, and then you're showered with eternal reward. So if that's the case, how is it? Not only this strange lashon, bedinu sheyitol schoroi. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, you know what, I'm going to give him and his seed, I will shower them with reward here in this world. But there is no reward for mitzvahs that you perform in this world. So now we have 2 questions. Says the Bunim B'Shisra. Achidish. Says in the Medrash, when Pinchas killed Zimri, not only did Zimri die, Pinchas' neshama flew away. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it back to him, so now he has Chiyas HaMaisim, great. But Lemaise, Schar Mitzvah Behai Alma Leika means in this world you don't get the reward. So as soon as you die, you get the reward. Pinchas died. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was kind to him and gave him back his soul, the Chiyas HaMaisim, shouldn't take away what's coming to him, rightfully so. Bedinu sheyitol scharo. So this answers both our questions. It's bedinu sheyitol scharo because his life is ended. He's not considered in this alma already. He's not in this world. He left. He came back. Okay, fine. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did chesed, but because of that, take away his reward. And therefore, he is rewarded in this world. Second answer. One of the reasons that we don't get rewarded here in this world is because our life here is considered like an employee. Sochir. There's a pasuk in Iyov, Perek Zayin, pasuk Aleph. V'chiyimei sochir yamav. Your life here is like a sochir, like an employee. The halacha is schirus eina mishtalemes ela levasof. When you finish the term, then you are paid. So when a person leaves this world after whatever they gave him here, now he should be rewarded. Great. There's a technical problem with this Pinchas. Rashi, Metzia Kuf Yudal Amud Beis, brings from the Midrashi in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, Yalkut Shimoni, Pinchas is Eliyahu. When am I going to be able to pay him? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to pay Pinchas. A normal person stays here for 100, 120, 500 years, whatever it is, but this guy's always here. Pinchas Eliyahu, he lives forever. He has to be rewarded here, otherwise we'll never be able to pay him. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu paid him here in this world. Chidush Yarim. Really, a person should not be rewarded for what he does. He's just doing what he was supposed to do. It's as if you're filling up your duty. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you your soul. Gave you 1,440 minutes and he expects you to do all kinds of things. HaKadosh Baruch Hu showers you with chesed all day long. And in return, he wants you to do certain things. Why should he be rewarded? It's not you're doing above and beyond. That's exactly why HaKadosh Baruch Hu put you here. Shouldn't be rewarded. That's the meaning. Tehillim Samech Beis, the last pasuk Yud Gimel. Lecha Hashem Chesed. Oh, you do so much Chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That what? Ki ata teshalem leish kema'aseu, that you pay a person according to his deeds. Why are you paying him? Shouldn't be rewarded. It's a Chesed. When are we talking about that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does a Chesed? And he pays you even though you're not supposed to be paid? When you're doing something which the halacha dictates and you're doing it, that's exactly why you're here. Shouldn't be rewarded. But when you're going above and beyond, you should be rewarded. Pinchas did something which is a halacha ve'ein moedim ken, which means if he came to Beis Din and said, Rebbe, what should I do now? They wouldn't tell him to do it. So that means he went above and beyond. Above and beyond, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what, so I'm going to give you right here in this world, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu paid him. Shaul Meishiv. He brings a Tvus Shor in his Chidushim to Baba Basa. What's the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't pay in this world, rather he pays in the next? Because when one is punished in this world, there's also sachar. When one is not punished in this world, so there is no sachar. In other words, nullifying a mitzvah's essay. If you didn't do a mitzvah's essay, do they punish you in this world? No. You know, there's mitzvah's essay and lo saseh, negative and positive. Imagine a father says to his son, don't do this! And he does. What's he going to give him? Give him a little patch. But if that's a lo taseh, a negative commandment. But if the father says to his son, listen, I want to spend some time with you, quality time. Let's go out to eat something. Get your ice cream, get your pizza. And the son says, no, I don't want. Is he going to punish him? Smack him in the face? You don't want to have that relationship with me, it's so sad, but I'm not going to punish you, it's just sad. So the positive mitzvahs as the b'china of ahava, b'chinas of getting close to Kodesh Baruch Hu. If you nullify one, you're not punished in this world. Good. The problem is, Masechet Sanhedrin we learned that Pinchas comes to kill Zimri. What would happen if Zimri sees Pinchas running to him with a sword, and Zimri says, oh yeah? And Zimri takes out his own sword and kills Pinchas. Would Zimri be chayav? No. Pinchas is a roidef, he's a pursuer to Zimri. He's patur. If that's the case, since his punishment could have been in this world, he could have been killed for what he did. The Mele should also be rewarded in this world. Some Sefer, two answers. Some Sefer explains why is it that in Kiddushin Lametes Amud Beis we say that Schar Mitzvah Behai Alma Leika. There is no reward for the mitzvahs you perform in this world. Why is that? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is worried, I'll pay you now, and later you're going to go sour. It's better to keep all the reward for when you leave. That's for normal people. But there's Pirkei Avos and Pirkei Mishnah Yudches where Chazal say, Kol HaMezakeh Sarabim Ein Chet Ba Al Yadoi. If you're involved in Zikr Rabim, you're not going to sin. What did Pinchas do? The biggest Zikr Rabim there is. He killed Zimri. Everybody saw the biggest miracle. Oh, wow, 12 miracles. Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer counts, not 6 like Rashi. 12 miracles. Everybody was in awe. Zikr Rabim. Zikr Rabim. En Chet Ba Al Yadoi. He's not going to sin. He's not going to sin. Mimela, I can pay him his reward in this world. Second answer, the Chassam Sofer, 6 answer total. Chazal say in Pirkei Avos, Schar Mitzvah. Mitzvah. Normally, the tzaddik doesn't want to be rewarded here. Why should I be rewarded here? What are they going to give me? $1 million? I'd rather get another mitzvah. I did a big mitzvah. I want another mitzvah like it. It's much better. What's $1 million? When I leave this world, I take the $1 million with me. I'm taking mitzvahs with me. I want mitzvahs. Pinchas, the last thing that he wants is another mitzvah like that. Pinchas wants another prince of a tribe of Klal Yisrael to sin with his terrible sin, chas v'shalom. Mimele normally is schar mitzvah. So Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't give the tzaddik the reward in material, physical aspects that we know as a reward, because the tzaddik wants a mitzvah. This type of mitzvah Pinchas doesn't want. In other words, the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, I have to give you something. Pinchas says, okay, fine. And therefore, bris keuna soilam, and Kodesh Baruch Hu rewards Pinchas in this world. He also gets a bris shalom. Not only is he a Kohen, he's a bris shalom, a peace covenant. Why specifically peace? So normally we understand he caused Klal Yisrael to have peace with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. He mended the relationship, and therefore he should be rewarded with a bris shalom. But the Kli Yakar, not in his Kli Yakar on the Torah, rather in a different sefer called Oilelos Ephraim, one of the many Sfarim that the Kli Yakar wrote, And he writes, when Pinchas did what he did, everybody saw it's not a good idea to be involved in immorality. He fought against immorality. Which means now people are going to go and cling to their wives, only to their wives. That's going to cause shalom bayis. In Yevamos Samach Beis Amud Beis, Chazal say, Kol ha-sharoi belo isha, if one is without a wife, sharoi belo shalom, is without peace. So he restored peace in the home. He now has peace because he is with his wife. He made it therefore mida keneged, he gets bris shalom, a covenant of peace. How many mitzvahs are associated with avodah zarah? There's 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. How many mitzvahs related to avodah zarah? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvoroi. Not everybody together?
All of them.
All of them? Don't wear shatnez has to do with avodah zarah? Shake the lulav on Sukkot is avodah zarah. That's a big Riddish. Don't know where you're getting it from. It's a gigantic Riddish. If you give me a source, I'll accept it. Without it,
Doesn't it say that avodah zarah is connected to
some mitzvahs and some averos have the weight corresponding to all. That means it's a heavy duty, very, very heavy, put in the scale. But Lemaisa Kodesh Baruch Hu says, I want you to keep the Shabbos. On Sunday morning, put on tefillin. It has nothing to do with avodah zarah. How many times the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, don't bow to them, don't do this, don't do that? Mitzvahs that are related to avodah zarah. The Rambam in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah counts 51 mitzvahs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spends from the 613 about avodah zarah. Apparently, it's very, very severe up there. 51. What's worse? Immorality, znus, or avodah zarah. There's obviously many mitzvahs related to immorality as well. We see in Achrei Mois, in Parshas Kedoshim. For what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes more severely? Avodah zarah or Gilui Arayos? עד שיבוא השלישי ויחיה ביניהם. You say avodah zarah, it's a Gilui Arayos. לקח טוב, מדרש will be מכריע ביניהם. What's that?
I just know that we lost the Yitzhak the Arayos at a certain point, right? So it's a little
To a certain degree.
yeah. So maybe
Skila versus Chelik or something. It's the punishment for each one. So which one is more homework?
But within Gilui Arayos, there's all kinds. It's not all one. Listen to a language of a Medrash. Medrash. I'm sorry? I'm not putting Lashon Hara in this contest. It says Gilui Arayos and Avodah Zarah. But you're sending us to Yuma Daf Tes Amud Beis, where the Gemara says, look how severe Lashon Hara is, because for the 3 cardinal sins, we lost the first Beis HaMikdash, but it came back 70 years later. For Lashon Hara, we're still suffering 1957 years, minus 2 weeks. Lekach Tov Medrash Bamidbar Daf Kuf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. Bo uree, come and see. Kama kasha aznus, how terrible is immorality. Sharei ba'egel, in Chet HaEgel, Parashat Kisisa, naflu, how many people died? Kishloshes alfei ish, 3,000 people. Ve'ilu biznus, the end of last Parasha related to this Parasha, Balak and Pinchas, Zimri. How many people died in the Mageifa? 24,000. HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes 8 times more. 8 times more for immorality than for avodah zarah. In the list of the moyadim that we have in Parshas Pinchas, among them we have Rosh Chodesh. So a few words about Rosh Chodesh. I once asked Maran Reb Chaim Zatzal, Shulchan Aruch Chaim Simin Taf Yutes Seif Aleph we learn mitzvah leharbos b'seudas Rosh Chodesh. You have to add one more item for the seudah of Rosh Chodesh. What about a person who's an ani? He has one more item that he can add. Rosh Chodesh this week is on Wednesday. Should he do it on Wednesday and add one more thing for the seudah of Rosh Chodesh, or save it for Shabbos? He doesn't have 2 items. He has one. He's an ani. What comes first is Rosh Chodesh, but the honor of Shabbos is greater than the honor of Rosh Chodesh. Hay minayu adif. What should he choose? Keep it for Shabbos, or the first thing that comes along, which is Wednesday, which is a little lesser chashivus? What do you say, Rabbi Isai?
Shabbos.
Shabbos. Why that is? Shabbos.
Shabbos we're off in the Rosh Chodesh.
Tadir v'sheno tadir, tadir koidem. And tadir is also more mikudash. So Reb Chaim said, Zrizin Makdimin. Psochim Daf Dalet, we learn Zrizin Magdim Mil Mitzvahs, which means on Wednesday, the first mitzvah that comes your way, do it. I think you should daven until Wednesday, and from Wednesday until Shabbos, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu somehow would allow you to have more food, but even if not, you have Oines, Rachmana Patre. Riddle of the day, we'll have more mitzvah Shem. Rosh Chodesh you say Hallel, right? When do you say Hallel? 3 times within 12 hours. Not because you made mistakes, no need to. Lechatchila. 3 times within 12 hours. What's that? Pesach night. Ma'ariv, the minhag is in most places they say Hallel. Then you go home, you say it in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and a few hours later in the morning, hopefully you get up early, within 12 hours you'll say Hallel 3 times. You did so good on this one, let's ask you another one. When is it that you don't say Hallel for a month and a half? A little more than a month and a half. A month and a half. And you're healthy, everybody's okay, and you go to shul, you have a siddur, no nedarim. You skip El. Why are you skipping anything? Don't skip anything. Whatever it says in the siddur, you do. Oh, so right after you finish Rosh Chodesh Elul, you said this morning Hallel. From that day, you're not going to say until Sukkot, which is a month and a half later, because Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You're on fire today. Wait, we're going to have more. We're just warming up. We're just warming up. Kiddush Levana. In most Svarim of the Rishonim, they actually call Kiddush Levana, the way we call it, they call it Birkas Levana. Not Kiddush Levana. The Tur uses that language. The Mechaber, copying the Tur, uses that language. But Darkei Moshe, in the Rema that he wrote, and other poskim call it Kiddush Levana, as we do. The Maharshag, Reb Shimon Greenfield, one of the great poskim, about 100 years ago, greatest poskim in his generation, he writes in the name of his son that it's a mistake to call it Kiddush Levana, and he says it's a mistake that between the Kuf and the Ches, it really should be Chiddush Levana and not Kiddush. And somebody made a mistake when they copied. It wasn't all digital and computerized. If somebody made a mistake once, instead of Chiddush Levana, they wrote Kiddush Levana. That's what he writes in the name of his son, because Lemaise, we're not Mekadesh, we don't sanctify the moon. We look at the calendar, we know what to do. We're not sanctifying any moon. It's just a Chiddush of Levana. So he writes this in the name of his son, but then he says, I think my son is wrong. He says, I think my son is, it's very cute what he says, but it doesn't make sense because we see many Achronim that do use this language. So apparently they know what they're talking about, and it really is Kiddush Levana. So he explains, why is it called Kiddush Levana? Because back then, time based on Midesh, they really were Mekadesh the Levana based on seeing it. So we're saying Kiddush Levana, Kiddush, as if, in parentheses, Al Yedei Levana. You were Mekadesh it by seeing the Levana. So the Maisa, we keep calling it Kiddush Levana. I once asked Maran Reb Chaim,
Spartan get out of that whole union by calling it
Birkas Levana, because that's what the Mechaber, that's the language that Mechaber Shulchan Aruch wrote.
Don't people call it Chiddush Levana also?
That's the son of the Maharshag's Chiddush that you should call Kiddush Levana, and somebody made a mistake. Lemaise, everybody calls it Kiddush Levana because that's what the Darkei Moshe and the Rema wrote, or the Sfardim will call it Birkas Levana because that's what the Tur and the Mechaber wrote. I once asked Reb Chaim, in Kiddush Levana, we say Shalom Aleichem Aleichem Shalom, Shalom Aleichem Aleichem Shalom, Shalom Aleichem Shalom. Can you say Shalom Aleichem Aleichem Shalom to a katan? He's under bar mitzvah. Godol Ador is standing right next to you, and a little 8-year-old is standing also. Shalom Aleichem, and you're totally ignoring him. Can you say Shalom Aleichem to a katan? It's not my son. I don't have to. Chinuch applies to his father, not to me.
of course.
You say, of course, and you answer like Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim said, yeah, no problem. And therefore, since then, I'm dafka makpi to do it. Why? Mitzvah lishmoa divrei chachamim.
Can you say to your Rebbe, Shalom Aleichem?
Yeah.
Are you supposed to say Shalom Aleichem?
You better say to your Rebbe, Shalom Aleichem. Ignore your Rebbe's presence. It'll be terrible. Why not say Shalom Aleichem to your Rebbe?
The Nusach is Shalom Aleichem, but aren't we supposed to say Shalom Aleichem, Mori Rabbi?
So yeah, Shalom Aleichem, Oiv Rabbi. It's not me'akev. Ma'afach. The Beis Yosef dedicates a whole simin for the Seudah of tomorrow night, Milave Malka, in simin Shin, the language of the Shulchan Aruch, le'olam, always, Yesader Adam Shulchanoi, b'motzei Shabbos, kidei, lelavos es Shabbos, to escort the queen Shabbos. Afilu eino tzarich ela lekazait. Even if he's full already from Shalishudis, all he wants is a kazait. Make up a nice table. One seif, he dedicated a whole siman for this. It's one seif, it's a one-liner. Shulchan Aruch does the same thing in Taf Yud Tes, which we read before. Mitzvah leharbos b'seudas Rosh Chodesh. It's a mitzvah to have something for Rosh Chodesh. 2 simanim, which is only one seif each, just to say that. The Rejine Rebbe used to say, now I understand a pasuk. There's a pasuk in Melachim Aleph, Perek Yud Ches, pasuk Chaf Aleph. Ad masay atem poischim al shtei seifim. Where are you still? Till when are you going to skip over those 2 seifim? Literally, why are you jumping over these? In other words, people don't treat it with the proper respect that they need to. Milave Malka, le'oilam, listen to the language, le'oilam. And regarding Rosh Chodesh, mitzvah leharbo. So don't skip over these 2 seifim in these 2 simanim. In this parsha, we learn about the son of Yisachar. His name was LeYashuv Mishpachas HaYeshuvi. So Pinchas has a son, his name is Yashuv. What kind of name is that? Why did he call him Yashuv? Comes the Midbar Kedemos. Who's the Midbar Kedemos? Bachido. And he says, unbelievable thing. At the bris, Yisachar didn't call his son Yashuv. He called him Yov. Yud, Vav, Beit. Yov. Fine? This little Yov grew up, and one day he comes home so upset. And he says to his father, Daddy, what did you do to me? He says, what do you mean? Why'd you call me Yov? He says, why not? I love this name. Me and Mommy, we sat and it's such a beautiful name. He says, no! Do you know there's an Avodah Zarah by the name of Yov out there? Oy vey, I didn't know. I'm so sorry, I had no idea. You know what? Don't move, wait a second. And Yisachar, who has 2 sins in his name, took one out of his name and says, you know what? Take this! And Yov became Yashuv. That's why now in Pashas Pinchas he is called Yashuv. Yisachar no longer is Yisaschar. He lost one shin, he gave it to his son. So now he's Yisachar. Now we're going to see. So Lemaise, if he lost a shin, should we say Yisaschar as it's written, or should we only say Yisachar? Different opinions. Das Zekeri mi Baalei HaTosfos, and that carries a lot of weight because that's the Baalei HaTosfos. And they say a few other reasons why he is called. They bring this, which the Chidah brought. They bring it as well, that he gave one shin to his son Yov, and now he is called Yashuv. So therefore, you should say Yisachar without mentioning the 2 shins because he doesn't have one. He lost it. They bring another reason. Why is there 2 shins over there? One is for the literal meaning of Yesh Sachar. There's a reward. Kodesh Baruch gave him a reward. Says Dinah when she gave birth to Yisachar. The other one is corresponding to Sachor Scharticha. She had this business dealing with Rachel. Give me the Dudaim. Who gets to be with Yaakov? Since it's a Lashon Gnai to mention that, so therefore we eliminate one shin that corresponds to that Maise, and that's why we only say Yisachar. This is the Baalei, that's the Kerim Baalei HaTosfos. Ibn Ezra and the Radak, they both write in Divrei Yamim that based on Dikduk of Lashon HaKodesh, you should really only say Yisachar with one shin. Chumash Heichal HaBracha, that's the Kumarna Rebbe, he goes very strongly against those people who say Yisachar with one, and he says you have to say 2 Yisachar. But nobody listens to him, and the minhag of the Olam is to say Yisachar with only one shin. The Chassam Sofer Achidish. Chassam Sofer says in Parshas Vayetze, when Yisachar is born, the Pasuk says Vatikra Shmo Yisachar. You should say Yisachar because that's his full name. Thereafter, stop and only say Yisachar with one sin. The beginning, the first time around, Yisachar, full name. People should know that's his real name. But then, because of all the maisim that we see before, that we saw earlier, what happened? So now start calling him Yisachar. Not less of a chiddush. The flip side of it, the Zitzjav Rebbe, and he would say the opposite. Say Yisachar, 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 Yisachar until you reach this parsha. Now, when we first introduced to Yashuv, the kid who took one of the shins of Yisachar, now stop, and from here, keep reading Yisachar. Only one sin. Ele va'ele, divrei Elokim Chaim, and it depends on the minhag. I think most places read Yisachar throughout the Torah. But anybody who has a different minhag, the Avid Kemar Avid or the Avid Kemar Avid. That it did what? Which one? We said 4 or 5 different things.
Yisachar the first time.
The first time, that's some Sefer, and thereafter Yisachar. Some Sefer. 3 weeks. And Tisha B'Av. Kedushas Levi, Levi Yitzchak Mbadichev, he brings the Gemara in Tainis, Daf Lamed Amud Beis. Kol hamis'abel al Yerushalayim, anyone who will mourn for Yerushalayim, Zoiche veroye besimchata, he will be able to rejoice with Yerushalayim. V'she'eino mis'abel al Yerushalayim, and one Chalila who is not mourning for Yerushalayim will not be able to see. It's rebuilt. Eino roye besimchata. What is this word? Zoiche. Zoiche veroye. He will merit to see. Literally, Zoiche is merit. But the Kedushas Levi says, a person is drawn after his machshava. Wherever his machshava is, that where his essence is. And if he purifies himself and mourns for Yerushalayim, his machshava, and in essence, his whole being becomes one of Kodesh and becomes one who mourns for Yerushalayim. Zoiche is not from a language of merits. It's from the language of mizdakich, which means he purifies himself. And he purifies himself, and a person who mourns for Yerushalayim now can actually now feel a little sample of the great simcha and joy we will have when Yerushalayim is rebuilt. So Zoiche is mizdakich. Mizdakich, you purify yourself, you become Kodesh. Achidish, to many, should know there were some tzaddikim in previous generations, and there are still some tzaddikim today that do not go to the Kotel. They just don't go. It's not that they go they just don't go. What's that? No, that's for ideological, different reasons, which we're not going to go into that chita now. Different reason. They hold that one potentially is, in theory, allowed to go, and yet they don't go. Why? In Yerushalmi in Yoma Perek Aleph Aloch Aleph, the language of Yerushalmi is Kol dor she'eino nivna b'yamav, any generation that the Beis Mikdash is not rebuilt in its days. The world says, the latter part of this sentence, Ma'alin alav keilu charav b'yamav, as if it was destroyed in its time. That's not what it says in the Gemara. Everybody quotes it like that. That's wrong. The language of the Yerushalmi is keilu hu hichrivo, as if that generation destroyed it. It's much harsher. Keilu charav, as if it was destroyed in that generation, means it was destroyed on its own. It has nothing to do with it. But when the Gemara points the finger and says keilu hu hichrivo, as if you destroyed it, that means you're involved right now in the same sins that caused it to be destroyed. Which means if the Beis Mikdash would be up and running right now, it would be destroyed. We are at fault. It's much harsher. And therefore some tzaddikim felt, you know what it means to go to the Kotel? You normally go to the Kotel with one hand full of requests. Take out your list. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, listen, I'd like a little more parnasa, I'd like refuah, shiduchim, kids, this whole big list. That's in one hand, you're holding the list. And on the other hand, you're holding a big hammer that you're destroying Beis HaMikdash. How can you go to your daddy's house with a hammer in your hand and say, "Well, can you please give me A, B, C, D?" Why are you holding a hammer? As long as we're still involved. In Rosh Chodesh, the destroyed Beis HaMikdash, how can you? This is not a psak halacha. One is allowed to go to the Kotel HaMaravi and daven. We're allowed to. But this thought should propel us to action. So we should think about the terrible sin of machloikis, distance ourselves from it. And on the other hand, every time that we close our mouth, one more word of Lashon Hara that you could have said and you didn't, that's another brick in the building of Beis HaMikdash. Reb Pinchas used to say, normally when you go to a wedding, it's very hard to identify who are the relatives. Everybody looks the same. If it's on the men's side, they're all wearing boring black suits, white shirts. Everybody is holding a mashke. They're dancing, they're smiling. You can't identify who is the relative of the chassan. When you go to a levaya, it's very easy to identify the relative. They're the only ones crying. The other people, nobody's laughing, making jokes there, but okay, serious. But the relatives, the real close relatives, are the only ones that are crying. Says Reb Shimshon Pinchas, one who cries now in these 3 weeks shows he is really, really close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's a relative. It's not a distant acquaintance. I feel terrible for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My father's house was destroyed. And if you cry during this time, you show that you're mamish close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you really rejoice in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Yamim Tovim, that still doesn't show that you're really close relationship. It shows that you love dancing, drinking, eating good foods. Why not? It's a yontif, I'm doing L'Shem Shamayim. But it goes both ways. If you know how to dance in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's festive days, we should know how to cry in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mourning period. So during this time, we always feel a little lost, looking for the right path. There's a Gemara in Makos Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis. Omer Rav, Chav Daled Amud Aleph. Omer Rav, Mistafina mehaikra. I am scared of a certain pasuk. I can't sleep at night. The pasuk says in the Klalos, Va'avadetem bagoyim, you will be lost among the nations. Says Rav, I can't sleep at night. Maskif la Rav Papa. Rav Papa responds and he says, Dilma, ka'aveda hamid bakeshas. Maybe like a lost item, Rashi explains, that is found after a certain period. Why are you saying, Va'avadetem, you will be like a lost item among the goyim, is something, that's it, detrimental. No, says Rashi, maybe it will be found after a little while. Dichsiv, because the last pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Yutes says, Ta'iti keseh oved, I am lost, like a sheep. Bakesh avdecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seek your servant. So there's 2 types of avedis. There's a lost item that you forgot where you placed it. But it's in a revealed place. It will be found. If it's your cell phone, somebody's going to ring, it's going to make noise, you will find it. But there's a different type of a lost item, which is in a concealed place, especially if the cell phone's battery runs out. Who says you're going to find it? If we're going to stop making noise, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu is not going to be able to identify the simanim of a yid, says Rav, maybe he won't be able to identify us anymore. The Papa answers, no. The Papa says, Ta'iti keseh oved, I'm like a sheep. The sheep always makes some sounds. I don't know where I am. Shepherd, find me. As long as we are like a sheep, asking to be returned, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will find us. So there is an Aveda that the owners give up hope. Yush. But there is an Aveda that the owners never give up hope. If it's something very expensive and dear, sentimental value to the owner doesn't give up hope. And at Tzuba Mirabanon, a Talmid Chochem, he is able to claim his Aveda even without Simanim. It's enough to have Tviyah sign. The Talmid Chochem is believed. And when he comes and says, this is mine, he doesn't have to provide Simanim. We normally have Simanim. What's the Simanim of a Yid? The acronym of Gever, Gimel, Beis, Reish, a real, true man, a macho. What's a Gever? Gimel is Bilus Chasadim. Beis, Baishanim. Reish, Rachmanim. So Kodesh Baruch Hu looks at it and says, I don't have to give Simanim, which means even if our Simanim are kind of blurry now, we cover them up. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's over Mirabana, Talmid Chochem. He is allowed to point to his children and says, yes, I want to reclaim them. I identify my kids. When you have an item, you bought a new coat. You go to the shul, you place it among another 100 coats like it. At the end of davening, you don't recognize which coat is yours. But when you have a coat that you've been using for 10 years, and you put it there, you know exactly where it is. A certain endearment, certain chavivus, and you're familiarized. You say, well, then you know, this is my coat. How do you know they all look the same? This is my coat. So Kodesh Baruch Hu knows us. And even if we cover up all the simanim, ki lo yidach mibeno nidach, HaPasuk says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't give up hope. The Pasuk says, ki lo sachpos b'moisames, ad yom moisa techake, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for us. And even if he as if gives up hope, there's a famous Ramban, Bab Metziach Havav Amud Beis, if the item is within the domain of the owner, Yush doesn't help. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it all belongs to him. Memale kol almin, Lashon HaZohar. Les asar panui minei. Kodesh Baruch is always there. Mekoyma sheloilam. La Hashem haaretzu meloya. So no matter where you are, you're in a Kodesh Baruch Hu's domain. Mimele, he can't give up hope. It doesn't work. So we are in his domain. He doesn't need simanim. Yush is not going to help him. And therefore Rav Papa says, Dilma ka'aveda misbakeshes. Like that lost item that will be found, because the passage says, Ta'iti keseh oived. I am like a lost sheep. Kodesh Baruch Hu, bakesh avdecha. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Shuva elai. Va'ashuva eleichem. You start first. Shuvu elai. You do the first step. You make the first step. Come on, take the first step. And then, va'ashuva eleichem, and I come to you. And we respond, no, Kodesh Baruch Hu. Hashivenu Hashem eilecha. And then, v'nashuva, you make the first step. So if we are like a lost item, as Rav and Rav Papa discussed in Makois, we already learned the beginning of Kiddushin, of Beis. Darko shel mi lechazer achar aveidaso. Who goes looking for his lost item? The owner of the Aveda. And therefore, this argument between Knesset Yisrael and Klal in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he says, you start, and we say, no, you start. If we are like a lost item, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as if, is mechuyav. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Va'avadetem bagoyim," you will be lost. Oh, we are lost. We are lost. We are your lost item. So go seek for us. Ta'iti keseh oived bakesh avdecha. So we don't find the way home. We rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu that no matter what we do, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never give up hope. We have to make it a little easier for him to keep those money. In other words, let the cell phone keep ringing, so as if it will be a little easier and a little faster for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to redeem us. There was a boy, a young bachur, 16, 17, who wanted to ask the Chafetz Chaim a question. He traveled for 2 weeks. Trains, and he walked for 2 weeks. He was exhausted by the time he finally arrived in Radim. It was already late night. And Chafetz Chaim's son-in-law, Tzvi Hirsch Levinson, met him. He was the menahel of the yeshiva in Radim. And he says, what are you doing here? He says, I wanted to ask the Chafetz Chaim a shayla. He says to him, so come over to my house, give you something to eat, you'll go to sleep. Tomorrow morning you'll daven shachis, give you something to eat, pas shachis, and then you go into the kohen hagodol me'echav. Go to the Chafetz Chaim and ask him your shayla. Givaldik. He takes him home, he gives him something to eat, and he makes the bed, and this kid goes to the bed, and then he suddenly realizes, I didn't have ma'ariv. Late night, I'm exhausted. You know what? Catch a short nap. I'll wake up soon and I'll get up and I'll daven. Obviously, that short nap became a very long night's sleep, and he got up in the morning. Totally forgot that last night he didn't daven ma'ariv. He went to the yeshiva, he davened shachis. As we live, Tzvi Hirsch Levinson took him back home. He gave him breakfast, and then he says, "You're going to go now to the Chafetz Chaim?" He takes out his little note that he wrote what he wanted to ask the Chafetz Chaim, and he goes in. And the Chafetz Chaim greets him, Shalom Aleichem, where are you from? And then this kid wants to start speaking and say to the Chafetz Chaim the reason he came. Chafetz Chaim starts speaking instead, and he says to him, you probably don't remember. Where do you live? You're not from this area. I remember, back then, there was so much money here. The economy was flourishing. It was gewaldic. Money was pouring out of people's pockets. At the time of the Tsar, it's so much money. If a person dropped a coin, he wouldn't even bend down to pick it up. What's the big deal? No big deal. It was different. It was different then. Today, you drop 1 penny. Where is it? I lost my penny. No, it's not like it used to be. This guy says, I know the Chafetz Chaim, they say he has the Ruach HaKodesh, but I didn't know he's a financial advisor. Why are you talking to me about the economy? Chafetz Chaim continues and he says to him, it used to be HaKadosh Baruch Hu had Beis HaMikdash. And when he had Beis HaMikdash, he had Nevi'im. Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, no more Nevi'im. He had Tanoim. He had Amoraim. Then he had the Rambam. Later on he had the Chassam Sofer. If a person didn't daven ma'ariv, let's say, the time of the Nevi'im, Beis HaMikdash, pocket change, so you lost $50. Kodesh Baruch Hu is not doesn't make such an impression up there. That's when everybody's rich. You have a lot of mitzvahs, heavy duty mitzvahs, some heavy duty people. I'm one minded. No. But later on, today, when Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't have Tanaim and not Amoraim, he doesn't have the Rambam, he doesn't even have some Sefer. Do you know what every Ma'ariv does upstairs? Woo-woo. And the boy thinks, I knew he had Ruach HaKodesh. I didn't know to what degree. This is so true. We are midgets. Midgets, they're small. But every mitzvah that we do today has much more weight than it did back then. Because they're giants of giants, so a small little ma'ariv, that is not even a choiva, shoes that we accepted on ourselves. Back then, maybe, didn't count for so much compared to everything else that he used to do. Today, we are poor, like the Chafetz Chaim described. And it's been already 100 and something years since he described that. It's not just a ma'ariv. It's every little tiny mitzvah that we, small mitzvah. These small mitzvahs can change and tilt the scales. The Chafetz Chaim once explained, how is it that we should be zoiche, and we know where the footsteps, mamish, it's very close. How is it shayach? The Tanaim were not zoiche. The Amoraim weren't zoiche. The Arizal was not zoiche. So we're going to be zoiche. How is it possible? The Chafetz Chaim explained, they already filled up the sack full of mitzvahs. Now all that's left to really make it full is a few more crumbs. Crumbs we can also do. No big deal. We are like midgets sitting on a giant's shoulder. So what they're expecting from us is small little things. So we have to make sure that all those small little crumbs go into the sack and Harira don't fall out, because that's all that's left in order to bring Mashiach. Before benching, at Shabbos, best of days, we say Shir HaMalos. And we say Shir HaMalos, B'shuv Hashem, Shiv Sion. You know what's going to be then? What's going to happen? B'shuv Hashem, Shiv Sion. Everybody's going to come back to Yerushalayim. Hayinu kecholmi. If we would have written this pasuk, what would we change here? Hayinu kecholmim? He's talking about a futuristic prophecy. Shir HaMalos, B'shuv Hashem, Shiv Sion. When it happens, Nihiyeh kecholmim. Not hayinu kecholmim, that's past tense. Why hayinu kecholmim? When everybody comes back, then we will realize why it was all letoiva. Today, we don't see it. We know, we believe. Medrash Bereish Yisra Parashat Nun Aleph says, "Ein davar hayored milmala." There's nothing bad that comes from above, nothing. But it's hard to see. But when this will finally happen, hayinu kecholmim means we'll understand the whole time we were dreaming. When we thought, "Oi, why did this happen? This is terrible. Oi, this is a tragedy." Then we'll understand the whole time, all these 1957 years, we were dreamers. We didn't understand. Not we'll finally, this is like a dream. No, then we'll wake up from the long dream that we had during the gallows, thinking it's not good for us. Why, where, what? We don't know. But this is something we shouldn't wait until then. This is something we should be mischazik now, to understand it's all good. How? Different rectifications, but only Rebbeinu Shel Olam knows this cheshbonis. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch Chaim, Simen Kuf Pei. The halacha is that when you bench, you have to cover the knife. All the knives on the table should be covered. Why is that? Mishnah Berurah brings two reasons. Either because the iron, which the knife is made from, is meant to shorten a person's life. The sword is made out of iron. And the Mizbeach is meant to lengthen one's life. In one's table, the Gemara says in a few places, is like the Mizbeach. It's not right to take that which shortens one's life and put it on that which extends one's life. You're bound to bench now. You're going to extend your life. What are you going to use a knife? One item, one reason. The Mishnah Berurah brings another reason from Rabbeinu Simcha. There was once that a person was so upset in benching when he says, Uvenei Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim is destroyed. He took the knife and he stabbed himself in the heart and he died. So because of that, they said, you know what, from now on, when you have a knife there, it's dangerous. Cover it. Somebody once came to Maran Reb Chaim Zatzal He said, Rebbe, what kind of a strange halacha is that? Come on. Who will take a knife and stab himself? Oh, uven hey Yerushalayim. Oh, Yerushalayim, he takes the knife. Who does that? So there was one weirdo, and because of that, all of Klal saw, and they have to cover the knife or remove the knife from the table. Come on. And Reb Chaim said, the halacha is not for weird people. The halacha is for normal people. He was the normal one. We are the weirdos. Why doesn't it bother us to that extent? That's the message of this halacha. He was the normal one. Supposed to cry, the house of your father is destroyed for 2,000 years. He's the normal one. We are the ones who are strange. There's a Yerushalmi in Ksubis, Perek Yud Beis Halacha Gimel. And Chazal say over there that Rabbi Yirmiyah asked that he should be buried wearing his shoes, holding his staff in his hand, leaning on his side, and please bury me close to the highway. Why? Save time. Tchias HaMeisim comes. I want to run to be able to see Melech HaMashiach. Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman asked, what is he going to gain? Oh, another 42 seconds faster, so take your time, 42 seconds, and take the staff from wherever it is, put your shoes on, and go to the highway and start walking. So you gain a minute and a half. Says Rabbi Elchanan, you see from here, the yearning desire that he had to see Pnei Mashiach. That's the message of this. Rabbi Yerucham gave a mashal. You call a cab. So you have your suitcase ready, your wallet is already in your pocket, you have the documents that you may need, but you don't put on your coat and you don't put on your scarf until the guy starts beeping and he's there. So you go down with your coat and you get ready. But if you're waiting for the train, you're at the station, you're waiting for the train, nobody's waiting for you. So then everything is ready. The coat, the scarf, you're holding onto the suitcase, whatever train is it, you jump on! You have only 1 or 2 seconds. Nobody's waiting for you. That's how we should be waiting for Mashiach. It's not like, okay, when he gets there, he'll beep, and I'll take my time, and I'll come to see him. The yearning desire, and anticipation, the longing that we should have for Mashiach, the station is here, we're at the station. Any second the train is coming. Will I be able to have the schus to see Mashiach when he comes? It's one of the principles of our faith is to anticipate Mashiach. But what does that mean? Reb Levi Rabinovitz was the father of Gamliel Rabinovitz. Anyone who knows the Mekubal of Gamliel? Reb Levi was a giant in Nigle, in the revealed parts of Torah. He wrote the Ma'adani Ashulcha on Yordera, very important halachic work. And his son Gamliel is a big Mekubal. Reb Levi was one of the hidden secrets of Yerushalayim. Erev Pesach, his wife is at the kitchen, told the kinderlach, and he's sitting in the Kotel and learning. His wife was grinding the chrein to use for maror. That's what they used. Hard work. She's grinding and preparing it. So the kids come to her and say, Mommy, why do you have to work so hard? Just wait. When Tati comes, he'll help you with this. It's very hard work. She says, no, I want to get used to do this on my own. And the kids got very nervous. What does that mean? What does that mean? Is Daddy sick? Is he going to leave us soon? Are you going to be a widow? You're about to divorce? What does that mean? Why do you have to get used to do this on your own? And she says, no, Khalila. But you know your father's a Kohen. Erev Pesach, by Beis Hamikdash, you know how busy it is? You know how many people come and bring their korban to Shech? Erev Pesach, for sure he's not going to have time. He's not going to have time to be in Arlington for 1 second. There's so many korbanos to be brought, so I have to get used to doing this on my own because Mitzvah Shem Mashiach is coming. Some people speak about Mashiach. Some people live Mashiach. I think that's what it means to live, with the anticipation, with the longing. Not just to talk about it, to do achana. What are we doing to speed up his coming? The Navi in Zechariah Perek Ches Pasuk Yutes says, Ko amar Hashem Tzevokos, Tzom HaRevi'i v'Tzom HaChamishi, v'Tzom HaShvi'i v'Tzom HaAsiri. All these 4 fast days, Yiyeh leBeis Yehuda, lesason, ulesimcha, ulemoyadim tovim. Soon, in Mitzvah Hashem, it's coming this year. We will merit, this will be a yontif. Is it going to be a chiyuv to eat meat and drink wine on Tisha B'Av?
Yes.
Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, Asara B'Teves, Tzom Gedalia. Again, it's the same language used about all these four. These days will turn into sason and simcha ulemoyadim toivim. That means you'll have to drink wine and eat basar like you do on every yontif. You're saying yes? With no raya, no nothing. And you want us to accept it. Rashi, in Rosh Hashanah, Yud Ches explains this pasuk, lesasun lesimcha, it should be asur, hesped and tainis. No eulogizing, no fasting. He doesn't say that you have to eat meat. He decided sasun and simcha means you're not allowed to eulogize and you're not allowed to fast. The Sisei Chachamim brings a cute remez. Sason, lesason ulesimcha in Gimatria is 1075, and esped v'tanis, esped with an aleph, he writes, switches off aleph and hey, is the same thing. That's why Rashi decided it's hesped and tanis, and he didn't speak anything about eating meat and drinking wine. But why is it? The Rashi didn't explain pashtus. If it's a days of simcha like moyadim, yamim tovim, you should really have to eat meat and drink wine. So the Turei Even writes that the source of Rashi to say this, that it's only asu and hesped and tanis and not chayav in basar and yaim, is from the Gemara in Megillah Dafei, where the Gemara darshans about Purim. The pasuk says that it's also going to be a festive day. Yemei simcha melamed she'asurim behesped. Nobody told you to eat meat. It's asur behesped. Mishte, meaning asur betainis. So Rashi took the same idea from Purim and he applied it over here. And Yom Tov over there, the Gemara says melamed she'asurin bemelacha, but lemaise melacha we never accepted on ourselves. So technically speaking, one is allowed to work on Purim, even though the Shulchan Aruch writes you don't see a siman bracha from doing this. So the moyadim in zmanim, the Moshe Buch Shlita, he explains, where the pasuk says lehedya v'somachta, that is midina, a chiyuv to eat meat, to drink wine, because en simcha ela bebasar v'yayim. But when it says yom mishte v'simcha, or yihye lesason lesimcha, it's going to be, it's not an active command to have meat or to drink wine. That just means asur in any action that brings you to sorrow, to sadness, and therefore eulogizing or tanis will be asur. Sorry?
No, there's a machta, that's Torah Shabbat. Right?
Yeah, so when the pasuk so when it tells you you should be happy, you should be happy. How? In simcha lebasar v'yayin. When it says this day is a day of simcha, that means don't make it into a day of sadness. Don't eulogize. So real soon, this is going to happen. It's going to turn into moyadim tovim. What about isur melacha? Will you be able to do some work, or melacha will be asur? You're consistent with what you said before. It's a full-fledged holiday. Some Sefer brings a medrash, pilei ploim of a medrash. And this pasuk, lesasun ulesimcha ulemoyadim tovim, the medrash says, lesasun ulesimcha neged atani, so you won't be able to fast. No, it's not that it's not going to be a fast day. You're not going to be allowed, even if you want to fast on that day. Ulemoyadim tovim, medrash, neged meleches haShabbos. You won't be able to do melacha on these days, mamish like a Yom Tov. Why? So he says, could be because this is going to correspond to the reason Yerushalayim was destroyed. Why was Yerushalayim destroyed? The Navi Yirmiyah, the Navi Nehemiah rebuke Klal Yisrael. The Gemara in Shabbos Kufutes Amud Beis says they violated Shabbos. They violated Shabbos. So ultimately the rectification corresponding to that will be that on those days, that until now were fast days for the destruction of Yerushalayim, Beis HaMikdash, will be asur and melacha. I don't know, according to what he's saying, Tzarechiyun, is it going to be like a Shabbos, which means zero melacha period, or is it going to be like a Yontif, which means meleches ochel nefesh will be allowed, because the pasuk is describing them as moyadim toivim, maybe like yamim toivim, yamim toivim you're allowed. He doesn't say, but it's an interesting medrash. The Nachal Eshkol, but in Sefer Eshkol, he brings another chiddush. Le'asid lav, soon. When these days will turn into festive days, it's going to be a choiva, an obligation to eat a seuda, and you're going to do kiddush. I don't know the formulation, what exactly you're going to say at that kiddush, but he says you're going to have to make kiddush. As the Navi says, le'moyadim tovim. According to him, lichoira maybe you're going to have to say Hallel as well. If there's Kiddush and Seudah and it's a Yom Tov, maybe you're going to have to say Hallel as well. And with that, you understand why it's a double language. The Rambam wrote, these days, Asidim Lios Yamim Toivim V'yimei Sason V'Simcha. Why are you doubling up? If it's a Yom Tov, it's a day of Sason and Simcha. Because it's both the negative and the positive. You're Asu and Hesped V'Ta'anis. That's the Sason and Simcha. And it's Yamim Toivim because you're going to have some of the halachos of a Yom Tov. The Magen Avram writes, Siman Tav Kuf Nun Beis, Seif Koten Yud Aleph. What's the reason that the Rema brings the minhag that on Seudah HaRishoina, on Erev Tisha B'Av, you actually eat a little more? Because the time of Beis HaMikdash, it was a Yom Tov. Tisha B'Av was a Yom Tov. And they used to eat a lot. It was the Sudas Yom Tov. So commemorating that, we eat a lot on Erev Tisha B'Av. Achidish. So it could be that everybody admits to the Perush Rashi that really Midina, Midivei Kabbalah, all that is Asu is Hesped V'Tanis. But we add, the minhag is to add Simcha Yesera, and Mitzvah we're going to find that real soon. So the day of Bias HaMashiach, Mirtzeh Hashem, Karov, it could be that it's going to happen today, great chances, and by definition, the fact is, we are one day closer. That's a fact, you can't argue with. Says the Lev Chaim, Reb Chaim Palaji, the day Mashiach comes, we're all going to say, She'echiyanu v'kiyimanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh, and on that day as well, we're going to do Kiddush. So it could be today you're going to have another Kiddush even before tonight. It could be that you're going to do Kiddush tonight, tomorrow, and on Sunday. According to that, Lichoira, I think maybe we should introduce Hallel. He doesn't write that, but Lichoira, why not? How can he come? Chas v'sholom. Who needs Gog u'Magog? Gog u'Magog, it's a Gemara Sered in Tzadiches. There's two types of Geulos. In its time, I will hasten it, the Pasuk in Ishaya says. Be'ita achishena. The Gemara says that's a built-in contradiction. Zachu achishena. If Klal Yisrael do tshuva, he comes today. No war. Immediately, he comes today. There's no need to wait for war. There's no need to wait for its destined time. If Chalila, we don't do tshuva, so then in its destined time, with a war, it is going to be harsh. No need for a war. It's up to us. What if Mashiach comes right when we finish the shir? You know what? Right now, we don't need to finish the shir. You're in the middle of Tisha B'Av. You're fasting. Do you continue fasting? Mashiach comes, and he says, why are you guys fasting? I'm here. Say Shechianu, do a Kiddush. Sorry, we can't. We'll do Kiddush tonight or tomorrow morning. We're in the middle of a fast. Do you cancel the fast or not? Yeah. You're saying yes. You're in the middle of a fast.
What does that mean that the Mashiach comes? What's the...
He knocks on the door. I'm here. Eliyahu and Mashiach hold hands and they come and they say, we've arrived. What's that? According to that's a machlokes how things unfold, because according to the Rambam, one of the duties of Melech HaMashiach is to build Beis HaMikdash, so he comes before Beis HaMikdash. So Mashiach comes. How do you know it's him? You see the clouds. That he's going to be riding on. Not on a donkey, because that's if we're not Zoiche. If we're Zoiche and do Tshuva, he comes today on clouds of glory. It's a Gemara. It's a pasuk in Daniel, the Gemara Dashins, that if we do Tshuva, he comes on clouds. You're going to see a cloud express. He lands right here and says, I'm here. Why do you think there's an internet in the world? It's going to be broadcasted live throughout the world. Instantly. The whole world will know. The Rambam paskins like Shmuel. He decided in Chisal Meshicha that he's going to paskin like Shmuel, that oilem keminhago noiheg, except Shebut Malchuyos. That means you'll still have your car and you won't have to go back to ride the donkey, and we'll still have all the technology and the advancements. But he will have a very sophisticated cloud that he will be brought on. You're going to still live the way he's coming is going to be either on a cloud or a donkey. That doesn't change the mitzius of the world. Well, I don't think this is machloikis lichor. No machloikis. What's the chiluk?
Maybe you fast for like
The Gemara says, if they decreed a fast, for whatever reason, all kinds of fast days, if the reason for the fast is no longer here, it started raining. If it's 10 o'clock in the morning, so you stop fasting right there. But if it's after Chatzos, you continue fasting. So it depends. Why are you fasting on Tisha B'Av? Says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, it depends. This shaila is depending. If it's for Avelus, we don't have Beis Hamikdash, we don't have Mashiach Tzidkeinu, what's the problem? You have. There's no more Avelus. There's no more Avelus. Even in the morning, even in the afternoon, you should stop fasting. But if it's a sign of tshuva you can even do when Mashiach is here, so immediately you're going to continue fasting. But he says, L'choyer, it's after Chatzos, as we find in different fasts, as similar to the Aviezri, as opposed to what I said once here in the name of Reb Chaim, but the Aviezri says, a person from Chutz La'aretz who is here on second day Yontif, and in the middle of the day he says, I'm not going back, I'm staying. So does his halachic status change in the middle of the day? So the Aviezri writes that if it's after Chatzos, keep already that second day Yontif. If it's before Chatzos, do Havdalah right now, and you become a Ben Eretz Yisrael. So similar. So Yom Tov Sheni of Galios and the fast of Tisha B'Av will be the same. Rabbi Gedalia Eisman asked a question. Shulchan Aruch Chaim Simin Tav Kuf Nun Dalet Seif Chaf. We learn on Tisha B'Av you don't say hello. Don't say hello to people, right? Don't say shalom. Why? Why was Beis Hamikdash destroyed? The ultimate rectification is to say hello to everybody twice. Greet people with a double shalom. Doesn't that fix what the problem was? So now, on this day, make sure you don't say shalom to everybody. Make sure you keep the fight up. What's up with that? Rabbi Gedalia Eisman said, it's very easy to be nice to each other when we all greet each other. Oh, how are you? Shalom Aleichem. It's so nice. Are you able to be nice to your friend even when he doesn't say hello to you? That's the challenge of the day. And if you're able to be nice to him when he even doesn't say shalom, tomorrow when he's going to continue to say shalom, it's going to be much easier for you. This is just practice. Very easy. Everybody says, of course we're going to be nice to him. Why not? Smiles. Everybody's nice. But when anybody is cranky because they didn't eat, and they don't even greet you with a shalom, and you're still nice to them, Mitzvah Hashem is going to be much easier for you the days after. And still, when you pass by him and he ignores you. And he's cranky. And you're cranky. It's so easy, he pressed the wrong button. And yet, the English High Commissioner once decided he wants to meet the leader of the Jewish nation. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, about 100 years ago. So Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld asked that he comes and meets him in his apartment. The Gabayim and the people close to Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said, Rebbe, not appropriate. Your apartment looks like a shack. It's a tiny little place, it's falling apart. It's High Commissioner. You have to meet him in somebody else's apartment, something nicer, a little more luxurious. It's just not nice. And he refused. He insisted, he said, no, I want him to meet me here. High Commissioner comes, and he comes in, he's in shock. What is this? You're the leader of the Jewish nation. You're the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim. You say one word, and everybody jumps. Here and across the globe. And this is where they put you. Why can't you get something a little nicer than this? Instead of answering him, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld goes to the window, and he says, do you see there? Right across the hill. You used to live in Batei Machaseh in the old city of Yerushalayim. Do you see over there? He says, what am I looking at? He says to him, you should know, my father used to live there. That is where his house was. My father's house was destroyed. And it's close to 2,000 years that it's standing in its destruction. How can I live in a luxurious apartment when my father doesn't have a house for 2,000 years? That was his answer. So in these days we daven for the building of Beis Hamikdash. These days of mourning, but it's also days of hope. We mourn for the past, but we also pray for the future. We mourn for the destroyed house, but we also daven for the rebuilding of Yerushalayim and Beis Hamikdash. My friends, I am not a Navi, nor am I a son of a Navi, but I do know, as we all do, there's not a lot of time left. There's very, very little time left to the Geula. We're mamish at the end. Chazal say this world is built for 6,000 years. We're at the year 5,785. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't wait until 6,000, because just like we don't wait for Shabbos, and we accept Shabbos on ourselves early, HaKadosh Baruch Hu conducts His world in the measure for measure, and He does the same, and He will bring the long Shabbos early. Imminent. We must fill up this remaining time, whatever it is, half an hour, 2 days, 3 days, it's still close. We must fill those days, fill up these days with Torah, with Chesed, with mitzvahs, with helping one another. And for that merit alone, Emetz Hashem. This will be the last year we discuss the Chuban Beis Hamikdash. And the next one we discuss, Emetz Hashem, the stories of the Geula. Achenu kol Beis Yisrael nesunim b'tzar u'b'yeshiva. Ha'im dimen bayam u'ven bayabasha. Hamakam yirachem aleim v'yotzim mitzar u'levach v'feilu v'shivud legeula. Ashto ba'agolo v'izman kori v'noimar omein.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.